Hello, JCA. Happy holiday week. This week is Thanksgiving, and who does not love Thanksgiving food? It has to be one of the best holidays of the year when it comes to food, and I cannot wait to share some more great recipes with you for this upcoming week. So what I have going on here today is going to shock you when I tell you that potatoes, yes, white potatoes, are healthy for you. I know everybody that I tell that to says, oh really? I thought white potatoes and white rice, raise your blood sugar and they are not healthy for you. And I start to talk about how we sort of have to get rid of all the myths that we've had in our minds for so many years, right? We were taught that fat was no good for us, and then we were taught that eating meals throughout the entire day, every 2 hours, snacking is good for you. And this is just another one of those things that we were taught that white rice and white potatoes can possibly not be good for you. And I'm going to tell you today that they are. White potatoes and white rice have a component called resistant starch. And if you've listened to any of my videos so far, you have heard me say this in probably every single one. So I hope you're not getting tired of hearing me talk about resistant starch. But that is a fiber that feeds the bacteria in your gut, and it is super healthy. We are always trying to feed the bacteria in our gut. We are basically, hi Linda, I see you. How you doing? Happy Thanksgiving. We basically have, 90% of our body is made of bacteria. Only 10% of us is human cells. Isn't that crazy? 90% of us is bacteria, which means that we are always feeding this ecosystem inside of us. And those bacteria are responsible for our mood, our digestion. Those bacteria literally send out serotonin and dopamine to make us feel happy or sad or anxious or something like that. So they are very crucial to our mood. Our digestion, like I said, they break down our food. They are responsible for our immune system. So they release the compounds that are necessary for our body to be able to fight viruses and flus and other things that we are faced with. A list goes on and on. So we're feeding this ecosystem inside of our body, and resistant starch is one of the foods that they live on. It's called resistant because our body is resistant to it. So our cells don't use resistant starch. Only the bacteria in our gut do. So that's why I'm here to tell you that I know you're always trying to replace potatoes with cauliflower. That seems like the new thing to do. Make every single thing out of cauliflower. And cauliflower is super healthy for you. It's a cruciferous vegetable. It absolutely is healthy for you. However, if you like potatoes, that can also be included in a really healthy diet. So I'm so excited to show you how I make garlic mashed potatoes. But I want to tell you, there's not just potatoes in here. So I've already boiled my potatoes and a few other ingredients that I include in this. So you can play around with this. You can add butternut squash to that water and make it sort of that sweet kind of mashed potato as well. You can use sweet potatoes, and you can use things like nutmeg and cinnamon, and you can make it all on that more sweet side of things. I actually have a combination of all different types of potatoes. They're all white potatoes. I didn't use sweet potatoes in this, but I have the red potatoes, I have these yellow potatoes, and then I also have some russet potatoes. So they're all the white ones, but these are the special ones that you might not have thought of. So this is a really funny looking vegetable. I only have half of it because I used the other half to put in the water. And this is something called Celery Root. So it is the root of celery. So it has the same smell as celery. Oh gosh, I wish you could smell it. The second you cut into it, you smell that celery smell. And so all I did is, you can see here, I cut it in half. I used a simple potato peeler to just peel off the skin, and then I cut it into chunks the same size as my potatoes. So it adds that really good sort of celery. I don't even know how to describe this, that it's not bitter, but I don't know, I can't describe that celery taste, I guess. But you know, if you've ever had celery, you know what it tastes like. And that's exactly what I've added. And then I also added carrots. So if you think about making soup and you add celery and onions and carrots and potatoes, I kind of have that same combination. So I have carrots, the celery root, and potatoes all boiled up and ready to go. You just boil that in some, I used salted water with actually a little bit of avocado oil, so that is already a little bit flavored. And I will keep that in mind later when I am salting the potatoes again. I will remember that I already used some in the original water, so it does have already some flavor in it. And those you just boil until they are fork tender. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain these potatoes, and give me 1 second. So I'm draining the potatoes, the celery root, and the carrots. I'm going to put that fire on the lowest it goes, and I'm going to add those potatoes, carrots, and celery root right back to the same pot, just for a minute or so with the fire still on, because I would like the water to evaporate just a little bit. So as I am mashing all those fork tender vegetables, some of that extra water will continue to evaporate. Another thing that I would recommend, and that I like to do to make it even more healthy, is leave all the skins on. I never ever, peel carrots or peel the skin off of any of the potatoes that I eat, because a lot of the fiber live in the skin of our vegetables and fruits. That is one of the most high fiber, insoluble fiber. There's two different kinds of fiber. There's soluble and insoluble. And both those types of fiber have different health benefits for you. One will help lower your cholesterol. One will make sure that it bulks up your stool. So they each have sort of different functions in our body, but it's really important to get a good combination of both. And the skin of our vegetables and fruits, including the skin on our carrots and the skin on our potatoes, have more of that insoluble fiber. So don't throw those things away. Another reason why I don't like to juice my vegetables and fruits, and instead I would prefer to make smoothies, because when you juice your fruits and vegetables, you're squeezing the liquid into what you're about to drink, right? You get all the liquid, you get the sugar and stuff like that, then you get some of the vitamins and minerals. But when you're juicing those things, you then throw away all of the skins and all of the sort of pieces and the fiber that's so healthy for you. So I would much prefer and recommend that you would make smoothies where all those pieces of skin and fiber are still kept inside of what you're about to drink. So some good healthy tips there. So I still have that fire on really low here on my mixture of potatoes, celery root, and carrots. And I'm just going to do that for a minute, and then I'm going to shut the fire off, and I'm going to show you what else is going to go into this delicious garlic mashed potatoes. But I can see already that there's not too much liquid left in here. So I'm going to shut that off, and I'm going to just sort of let that sit while I get working on my few other secret ingredients. So I'm going to get that fire on. I'm going to put some avocado oil in there, and 1 second, let me grab it. As always, I always talk about how I use avocado oil when I am cooking something at a higher temperature, because avocado oil and coconut oil and ghee are some of the options of fats that don't burn as easily. They have a higher smoke point, so it's okay to use them at higher temperatures. Whereas olive oil, which is super healthy for you, is something that I use or save for when I lower the temperature or for salad dressings and things like that. So let me just cover up this so it stays sort of nice and warm. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to saute some chopped onions. I don't think you can see it. Let me show you. I have some chopped onions here. There you go. I have them diced, and then I have some minced garlic that I'm gonna add in a bit also. But what I will tell you is some tips for eating healthier over the holidays. And honestly, the tips that I'm about to give you are not that different from tips that I would tell you on any other normal day, but for the holiday especially. Three of the things that I think are great about holiday eating and that you can actually implement and still eat really healthy on those days is: number one, we are eating on holidays whole and unprocessed foods, right? Because we get together with our families. Unfortunately, this year we might not be able to do that as much, but we do cook foods the way that they were found. We go into the store and we pick them out in the form that they were found in nature. So all of the vegetables that we pick out, all of the fruits. Hi Shirley, I see you today. Happy Thanksgiving. So that's one of the best things about holiday eating. A lot of people think, oh my goodness, holidays, we eat so much more and we eat, we can gain weight on the holidays. But if you think about it, we're actually a lot of times eating more healthy foods on the holidays because we are choosing foods in the store the way they were found in nature. So they are whole and unprocessed. They don't contain any unwanted additives, preservatives, or processed ingredients that were put together in a laboratory and added to the food, and that's how the food has a longer shelf life or a different taste or texture, and they stay in boxes and bags and things in the middle of the supermarket, right? But instead on holidays, we're choosing things that are found around the perimeter of the supermarket where they are whole, unprocessed, the way they were found in nature. So I honestly believe that a lot of holiday eating is more healthy for us than even on non-holiday days. So that's the number one. Number two way to eat more healthy on the holiday is to make vegetables and fruits a bigger part of your plate. So if you are gonna go back for seconds or thirds, because on normal days maybe you don't do that, but on the holiday you do, then go back for more of the fruits and the vegetables and a little less of some of the other more high calorie foods like the proteins and the starches and things like that. So making fruits and vegetables sort of the majority of what you're eating is always healthy for you, especially on holidays if you're going to be eating a little more than usual. And then number three is, and I'm just letting this heat up, so don't worry, I'm not forgetting about it. Number three is to keep your eating to your meals. So don't snack in between meals. Try to eat your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner with about 4.5, maybe even 5 hours between your meals, and then fast for about, maybe up to 12 hours, even sometimes 14 hours over the night. So 3 tips for eating healthy. Honestly, this is for holidays, but it really is for almost every other day of the year as well. And that is whole, unprocessed foods, making fruits and vegetables the majority of what you're eating, and then avoid the snacking as much as you can. So 3 meals and then a pretty decent amount of hours, like maybe 12 or even 14 over the night where you're fasted. So those are some really good tips for eating healthy, honestly, every single day of the year, but it'll especially help you on the holiday. Okay, so just to review what I have going on, I have already boiled potatoes, all different kinds of white potatoes. Yes, white potatoes are healthy for you, regardless of what you've heard in the past. I also have some celery root in there, which is a really funky looking vegetable that you might run away from when you see in the supermarket, but it's not worth running away from because it's celery, it's so delicious, the root of celery, and all you have to do is cut off the edges and the peel using a potato peeler. The skin comes right off. So that is also boiled with the potatoes, and I boiled some carrots. So I'm getting this great combination of potatoes, carrots, and celery already in there. And then what I'm going to do here is saute some onions. Okay, so I had heated up some avocado oil. You remember that that's the oil that I use when I am using a higher temperature, because avocado oil does not burn the way that some other fats do, like olive oil might burn because it has a lower smoke point. So I'm gonna let that sort of saute just until the onions are like a bit translucent. And then this is what I always do. You probably have seen me do this before in the past. Is I move, and this is not just when I'm only, cooking onions, but almost any vegetable or food that I cook, I always put things in the order in which they take to cook. So I know, like here, onions take a little longer to cook than the garlic, so I will put the onions first. But when I have some other vegetables, like some types of potatoes or squash or broccoli or cauliflower or, anything like that, mushrooms, those things take a little longer also. So I put those things in first, let them all saute, and then I will move the vegetable to the edge of the pot. And I will show you this because it's about to happen in a minute. Move everything to the edge of the pot, lower the temperature, and that's when I add my minced garlic, and I put some olive oil on it because I lowered the temperature, and I let the garlic melt in the center of the pot before I mix everything together. I will also wait to season everything to the end. As always, seasoning using salt does allow the water to come out of the food and sort of stay in the pot. And if you're trying to brown anything, then that would, dampen the ability for the thing to burn, to brown. So I will wait to the end to season all of my food. Okay. All right, this is going really great over here. And I also thought that I would talk a little bit about ghee. So I've talked about this in the past, and I did mention that this is going to be dairy-free mashed potatoes, so you do not have to use ghee as part of this. You can absolutely just continue to use the avocado oil or olive oil or things like that. Hey Helen, how you doing? I see you. Oh my gosh, I wish you were here to smell this. It really does smell so good. The second you make those onions translucent, it comes up, and the garlic is going to smell amazing. So here is my ghee. You can get this right at Publix. It is clarified butter. So again, you do not need to use this if you're keeping your meal dairy-free. And so people will ask me, number one, why do you use ghee? I use it because it is even healthier than butter. It does have a higher smoke point, so I can use it when I'm cooking at high temperatures, and it also contains this compound called short-chain fatty acids, which is a really healthy compound that is released by the bacteria in our gut, and it helps with digestion. But another question that I get is, well, why are you dairy-free? And why are so many people sort of going that way? So number one, if you're kosher, that might be a reason that you make this meal or this dish dairy-free, because if you're going to be eating this along with turkey or meat or something like that, then you want to keep this dairy-free. That's totally separate from a health reason. But for health purposes, and I'm starting to see this going, so I don't want to overdo it. I have a tendency of talking so much that my food burns. And I said last week that my husband and I do have to end up eating this, so I can't really ruin it completely because I just don't want to waste all these good ingredients. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on this as I explain this conversation to you. Okay, so another reason why you might be dairy-free. Number one, I will tell you that people do confuse the idea of being lactose intolerant to being dairy intolerant. Two different things. Lactose is the sugar that's found in milk, and people do have a lactose intolerance. That is something that some people experience, and that would be a reason why you would cut out the lactose. So they do have lactose-free milks available. They have ways of, removing lactose or helping your body digest lactose so that you don't have so much of a sensitivity to it. On the other hand, different from being lactose intolerant, some people are dairy intolerant. Now, for those people, taking out the lactose and drinking lactose-free milk is not the solution, because lactose-free milk still contains casein, and casein is a protein in milk that many people have an intolerance to. Now let me add my garlic to this, and I'm going to explain why casein in particular could be an issue. Okay, so as I described, I move all the vegetables to the edges of the pot. I lower the temperature, and again, this does not have to just be onions. If I were cooking any combination of vegetables, this is what I would do. Even if I had added some meat to the pot, I would also push everything to the edge, put the garlic, because the garlic is something I add at the end because it only takes a minute to cook. Okay, so that I lowered the temperature, and that is why I am now going to be able to add olive oil for the flavor. And it's not going to burn because I lowered the temperature. I do use this delicious olive oil. It's called Cassandrinos, and you can certainly ask me about this later, and I will give you the website. I order it online. I order like a few bottles at a time, and it lasts me a really long time, but it's delicious. It really has that flavor of olive oil that you love when you sort of dip bread into olive oil and you have that like yummy olive flavor. So that's what this has. It's I think this is sourced from Greece, and you do have to be a little bit careful about the olive oils that you buy in the store, because they have done some research, and although they do claim to be pure olive oil, they are not always actually pure. They are sometimes refined, and they do have some other added ingredients that are not so healthy for us. And I do have a list of olive oils that are preferred and olive oils that sort of failed that test. So if you want that from me, let me know, send me an email or comments on this video, and I will send that over to you. Okay, so like I said, this garlic only takes a minute, so I don't want to let it burn, and I have not forgotten the conversation that I wanted to have with you about why some people are intolerant to the casein, the protein component of milk. And that is because of this. So our gut has two layers, okay? One layer is the membrane, basically the skin that covers our gut. So our gut is what goes from our mouth to our esophagus, to our stomach, our small intestine, and large intestine. That's our gut. So one layer that is protecting that is the skin, and then another layer is the layer of bacteria. I said in the beginning of this video that we're basically feeding this ecosystem in our body all the time, and that second layer of protection is bacteria. So many people start living a whole lifetime and doing things like taking Advil and drinking coffee and and there's just many things, and taking antibiotics, unfortunately. These are the things that sort of damage those two layers, the layer of bacteria and even sometimes the skin layer as well. That skin layer is something like a cheesecloth, and you can imagine a cheesecloth can sort of make holes and get ripped. And that is what would happen if you continue to damage the bacterial layer and then also get like sort of holes in that cheesecloth. And that is what is called a leaky gut. You may have heard that term before. Many people have. Actually, almost everybody has a little bit of a leaky gut, but the problem happens when that leaky gut becomes sort of worse and worse. Okay, so I don't want to let this burn. Garlic does burn easily. Okay, so what I'm actually working on right now here is really kind of the sauce that I'm going to be adding to my mashed potatoes that have potatoes, carrots, and celery root all mashed in there with the skin, no peeling, no cutting skin off, leave skin on, full of fiber, very healthy for you. So is white potato, full of resistant starch, which feed the bacteria in our gut that I was just telling you about. Okay, so let me just finish up here with the food, and I will finish teaching you about those casein and why that could be a problematic food for some people. Okay, so as I said, I always season at the end. So I'm seasoning up with a little bit of salt, and you probably have seen me talk about this often, that I am a spice queen, which is what is said on my apron over here from my awesome cousin Joy, who sent that to me. But I do love my spices, so salt, pepper, paprika, a little bit of garlic, onion powder. I told you I'm a spice queen. 3 more, some chili powder, some oregano, and mustard powder. Please add mustard powder, especially when you are cooking with cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts and broccoli, because the mustard powder brings out and makes available a very healthy component called sulforaphane, which is found in cruciferous vegetables, but the mustard powder actually makes that compound more available to our body, and it's a very healthy compound for us. Okay, so I'm going to mix all this together. I'm actually going to raise the temperature back up a little bit because I had lowered it when I added my garlic and my olive oil. But just a little bit higher so that this gets going a little bit better. Okay, a few more minutes. Let me finish up my conversation. Why is casein possibly problematic for people? And that is, I was telling you about the skin layer and the bacterial layer of our gut, and there are certain foods, and the list is something like dairy and gluten and corn and soy and shellfish, which is obviously not kosher for those of you who don't eat it, don't worry about it. But sometimes tree nuts, caffeine. So there are certain foods that seem to be able to more easily damage the bacteria, break open those holes in the skin layer, and get into our blood. And that's what we don't want to happen. We want food to get digested down our GI tract, like I said, the mouth, the esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine, and then be eliminated with nutrients being absorbed in a healthy way. But we don't want undigested food to escape the gut and get into our blood. That causes something like what you've heard, inflammation. That tells your body there is something in our blood that doesn't belong there, and we need to send out immune cells to that area and get rid of that foreign product that is in the blood. That is called inflammation. And inflammation is a good, healthy process for defense and protection, but we don't want it to happen all the time. We don't want it to linger, and we don't want it to happen because of undigested food. So that is why people who seem to have more of a leaky gut, maybe inflammation that they can't explain, symptoms like indigestion or headaches or mood intolerance or disturbances or insomnia or joint pain or skin, rashes. These are all symptoms of inflammation, and if you have those and you don't know why, it's possibly because you're eating something that is escaping the gut, getting into your blood, and causing this reaction. So that is why many people seem to eliminate casein in milk, all dairy products, to test out and say, let's see if maybe this inflammation will go away when I remove these certain foods. So that's the science behind it. I hope that made sense. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I can explain that better or in a different way or answer your questions, but contact me anytime for me to help with that. Okay, let me get on with this because it's getting late and I always think I'm gonna have so much more time than I actually do. Okay, so I raised the temperature back up. Now I'm gonna add my balsamic vinegar. So I always like to add that acid as part of the flavoring to my food. I'm going to add some coconut aminos, which I've talked about so many times before. Coconut aminos, this is what it looks like. It's the replacement for soy sauce. That's what I use it for. It tastes exactly like soy sauce. It does not taste like coconut. Many people tell me they don't like coconut. It does not taste like coconut. It tastes only like soy sauce. And I use it instead of soy because of that problem that I told you before, where soy could be a little bit more inflammatory, especially in the United States because it's genetically modified and there are ingredients, pesticides involved in soy that can be quite inflammatory to us. So I use coconut aminos instead. So I've used already some balsamic vinegar, some coconut aminos. It adds that good, like salty kind of flavor. I'm going to add, and if you've seen me before, you've probably seen me use the same combination of flavorings many times. I seem to stick to my go-tos, but that was balsamic vinegar, coconut aminos, and some mustard. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon. And then I'm going to mix all of that together. And as I am running out of time, I want to explain to you what I'm going to do after the video is over, and then I will show you a picture of the final product at the end. But what I'm going to do is, so instead of dairy, if you are avoiding that, I am going to use some coconut milk yogurt, and I'm going to shut the fire off here and sort of let it cool, because if you add this cold, and this has been sitting out of the refrigerator for a little while because I wanted it to warm up, but if you take this out straight from the refrigerator cold and put it into something really hot, it will curdle. Even though it's not casein, even though it's not dairy, it still will have that effect. So I'm going to lower this temperature and I'm going to add that as my creamy component. The other idea is I could also add it to the potatoes directly. Either way, that works. And then I'm going to add, I'm going to saute. I know this is going to, I guess I really had an overachieving mindset for this half an hour, but I have these beautiful green vegetable leaves that I got from where I order my organic, locally grown veggies, called Misfits Box. That Misfits Market. So I get a box of locally grown organic vegetables from Misfits Market every week. I ordered one last week, and I honestly, it doesn't have a label on it, and I'm not sure. I don't think it's chard, because unless it's a different kind of chard, which is possible, because I got another thing that had chard and it had the label on it, so I knew that was chard. And this one didn't have a label and it didn't look the same. So if you have any ideas, it's not bok choy. It does look like bok choy, but it's much, much larger. Bok choy is usually smaller. So I would love if you knew what this was and you wanted to add your comment to the video. let me know. But I am going to chop this up and add this to this little sauce right here because I'd love to add some greens to my potatoes. So I already have the white potatoes, the carrots, and the celery root in there, all mashed up, ready to go. I have my sauteed onions and garlic with avocado oil, and I added my seasonings, salt, pepper, garlic, onion powder, chili powder, paprika, oregano, and mustard powder. And then, what else? Oh, I added my balsamic vinegar, my coconut aminos, and my mustard. So that's what's in this pot. I am going to add my greens and let that saute in this thing. And then at the very end, I am going to add my coconut yogurt to the potatoes, and I'm gonna mix everything together. And I brought up that whole conversation about ghee because I am going to add some ghee to mine. You don't have to, but if you are avoiding dairy, ghee is okay to eat, unless it's for a kosher reason. But if it's not for kosher, it's okay to eat because clarified butter does not, that casein gets sort of broken down and it's not in the same form that seems to be intolerable to the people who are sensitive to it. And then finally, some people like a little bit of hot sauce. My husband does, so I might add a tiny bit of hot sauce just to give it a little spice at the end. But I know that seems a little chaotic because I never have enough time to get through it all in this half an hour. But let me know what your questions are. I'd love to interact with you, and have a very happy Thanksgiving. I can't wait to see you after the holiday is over to talk about what we're doing with our leftovers. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.